How was your day? Maybe something didn't quite land. A moment said wrong, a step taken too soon. Some things would give anything to do over. There's a goddess in Japan who knew that ache. Her name was Izanami. The very first creation she ever made went wrong. If today felt like that, she'd understand. Settle in. Let your shoulders drop. The story we're about to step into begins much later, at a black gate, where a man ran for his life from the woman he loved most. Stones underfoot, cold air that fills the chest. Izanagi fleeing runs through a tunnel of black earth, hair flying, breath ragged. Somewhere behind him, something that used to be his wife. 3 peaches in his hand. A boulder ahead, taller than 3 men. Behind him, 3 figures gaining, hair flying, mouths open without sound. He has only seconds to decide. But Izanami had not always been like this. Once she stood beside him on a bridge of mist, and together they made the world. Every island, every river. How does a marriage end at the door of the underworld? How does the woman who shaped a country become the thing the gods seal away with stone? That's tonight. It is the oldest love story Japan ever wrote. And like the oldest love stories everywhere, it is also a story about loss. You've felt parts of it, we all have. This is what we do here. Every week, one story, one night. Something that happened a long time ago, and still has something to say to the person you are now. Get comfortable now. Adjust your pillow. Find your warmth. If you drift off before the end, Izanami won't mind. She has watched over sleeping mortals for a very long time. This is only the beginning of the story. The part most people never reach, the descent, the bargain, the broken calm, is still ahead. But not tonight. Tonight just this. If tonight felt like something, subscribe. We'll be here next week. Another story, another night like this one. Now back to ours. Back to the bridge above the sea. Long before there were islands, there was no Japan. There was only sea, slow oily waves, no horizon, no shore, and above it, a thin floating bridge of mist. On that bridge stood 2 figures, a man with a long jeweled spear in his right hand, a woman in deep crimson silk, both very young, both very still. Their names, Izanagi and Izanami, meant the one who invites. Each was the other's invitation. Each had been called to a task no one had been given before. Above them, in the high cloud, the older gods sat in a long, quiet row. They had spoken once. They would not speak again. Whatever happened next was these 2. The spear in Izanagi's hand was called Aim, no Nuboko, heavenly jeweled spear. Its tip was set with a single jewel that held the brine of the deep, they were told stir. Together, they leaned over the edge. Together, they lowered the spear into the dark water below. And together, slowly, carefully, they began to stir the world into being. To understand what they were doing, you have to know who had asked them. The first gods of Japan, 5 of them, had appeared from nothing, and then quietly stepped back. They were the Kodomo Matsukami, the first heavenly gods. They never walked, never spoke loudly. They simply were. And then, in their stillness, they made others. 7 generations passed in the high cloud, each generation a pair, a god and a goddess. The world below remained dark water, no land, no name yet for anything. The 7th generation was Izanagi and Izanami, the last of the divine pairs born in heaven. The first who would be asked to leave it. The older gods called them forward. The veiled figures spoke at the same time, in one slow voice. Make the land below firm. Bring up an island from the sea. To do this, they were given a single thing, a spear, long, jeweled, shaped to enter water without disturbance. Heavy, even for 2 pairs of immortal hands. The spear was not a weapon. Stir, the older gods said. That is all, stir the dark water. Lift it up. The spear knows what it is. They asked nothing more. The veiled gods did not answer. The flame at the center of the platform did not flicker. The 2 younger gods rose. They turned, they walked. At the edge of heaven they paused. The cloud thinned beneath their feet. Below them stretched the only thing that existed. Water that had never seen a shore. The bridge appeared in front of them. Not built, not summoned, It simply was. A long arch of pale rainbow mist, no railings, fading at its edges into vapor. Izanagi stepped onto it first. Then Izanami. The mist held them. They did not fall. They began to walk, slowly. The way you walk on something that might still change its mind. They reached the bridge's center. From there, in every direction, only sea, no edge, no far island waiting. Just dark, slow water and the breath of mist beneath them. The smell was not of salt. It was older than salt, heavier like wet stone before rain. Izanami breathed it in. Then she said one word. Begin. He gripped the shaft of the spear with both hands. She rested hers just above his. Together, they leaned slowly forward. Over the edge of the bridge of mist, the blade descended. Through air, through cold mist. Through that thin pale layer at the surface where one world ends and another begins. And then, into the brine. They stirred, slowly, patiently. The way you stir something thick and old that needs to remember how to move. Beneath the surface, something began to gather. The brine clung to the blade, whitened, thickened, began to drip, and every drop that fell back to the sea did not sink, it rested, on nothing, and held. Then another. Then more. The drops gathered, side by side, on top of the dark water. They did not sink, and slowly, the drops began to find each other. Where the drops touched, they thickened. Where they thickened, the sea quieted around them. By the time the two gods looked down again, something pale was floating below them. At first it was only a film, then a crust. Then the crust thickened. It rose. A pale knot of land, about the size of a low hill, rising above the sea. It was not green yet, it was not warm yet. It had no name yet, but it was, without question, land. The first land. The first something where there had been only water. Here's the part the myths never make obvious. They didn't celebrate. They didn't speak. They simply lifted the spear, looked at the small island, and decided, together, to step down to it. Heaven gave them a path down. The mist thickened beneath their feet, became stairs, became a ramp of light, sloping gently from bridge to sea, from sea to shore. They reached the shore at dawn. The first dawn this island had ever known. Pink light came up over the water like something offered. Their bare feet pressed onto warm sand. Cypress trees stood already at the slope above them. Tall, straight, dark green. They had grown into being while the two gods were still on the bridge. Haven had been patient. They climbed the slope together, slowly, without speaking. Each step taking them higher above the sea they had stirred. Each step bringing them closer to the very top of their first land. At the summit of Onagoro stood a single rocky outcrop, smooth, sun-warmed, as though it had been waiting for them. Izanami pressed her palm against it. The stone was already warm. It was not enough to make an island. They knew that. The land had to hold something. It had to be marked, claimed, turned from raw, rising stone into a place. So they would build something. A pillar. Not as a building, as a center. A place from which all measurements would be taken. A first axis for a world without one. They worked all morning. Heaven gave them what they needed. A long red, lacquered cypress trunk rose somehow from the cleared earth, straight, smooth, taller than any tree. They wrapped its base with shimenawa. A thick white rope twisted from rice straw. They folded white paper into streamers and hung them from the rope. The pillar was now sacred. They stepped back. The pillar stood alone in the morning. The first thing on earth that pointed deliberately at heaven. The first thing that said, "Here, begin from here." Now came the part neither of them had been told how to do. They had to be married. Two gods, one world, one beginning. There was no precedent. They would have to invent one. Izanami spoke first. "Let us walk around the pillar. You to the right, I to the left. Where we meet on the other side, we will speak our vows." Izanagi nodded. "Then I will go right. You will go left. We will meet at the back of the pillar. There we will become, together, what we have come to be." They began slowly, each in their own direction. Izanagi to the right, robes brushing the pillar's lacquered side. Izanami to the left, her bare feet silent on warm earth. They could not see each other, only the smooth red wall of the pillar between them. Only the sound of cloth shifting, of breath. The world held very, very still around them. They met behind the pillar, face to face for the first time as something new. Izanami spoke first. How beautiful. What a fine young man. Her voice was soft, pleased. Izanagi answered. How beautiful. What a fine young woman. It should have been enough. 2 gods, 2 vows. The world ready to be born from a circle around a pillar. It should have been enough. Maybe you can already feel it. That small wrong note. The way something said in the wrong order can sit in a room for a long time after. But they did not yet know. They did not yet feel it. Hand reached for hand. The world below them, the pale island, the dark sea, held its breath and waited. The Japanese word, huza, is a quiet their names, is a quiet invitation. Ike, let's go. Let's begin. It is the word said before something starts. Their names hold that small sound. Izanagi, the male inviter, Izanami, the female inviter. Each was the one who said to the other, come. Begin with me. Let's go. That word still lives in modern Japanese. People say it before a meal, before a journey, before any small new beginning. The first marriage of the gods is buried in everyday speech. A pillar, a circle, 2 voices, a vow. These are not specifically Shinto inventions either. Every culture's earliest weddings used a pillar, a circle, and an order in which to speak. But here on Onogoro that order was broken, just slightly, just enough. The world was about to learn that very small breakings, at the very beginning, can stay broken for a long time. Their hands joined, their robes touched. The vow was complete. They stepped together away from the pillar and walked down the slope of Onogoro toward the cypress grove. At the foot of the slope, the cypress trees opened into a small clearing. The earth was soft. A hall, woven from cedar planks and paper screens, was already standing there. Heaven had been generous. The hall waited for them, quiet, lit, ready. They stepped inside. They slid the paper door closed behind them. The cypress trees held the silence. Stay with this. It matters before the end. What happens in this small hall on a small island will set the rule for every birth and every death the world will ever know. Time inside the hall passed differently. Outside, the cypress trees did not move. The dark sea around Onogoro stayed glass still. Heaven far above did not flicker. Inside, something began. The first child was born late in the day. He was small. He was wrapped in pale skin. But something in him had not knit together right. He could not stand. He could not even hold up his head. They named him Haruko. The leech child. He could not stand because something in his bones had not yet been told how. The 2 gods looked down at him, then at each other. They did not blame him. They did not blame each other. But they understood, quietly, terribly, that Haruko could not be the firstborn of a world. He was not what creation needed. They wove him a small boat. Pale green reeds, bound at both ends with white rice paper cord. They wrapped him gently inside it. They carried the boat down to the white sand beach. Izanami knelt at the water's edge. The dark sea was very calm now. She placed the small reed boat on the surface. She let go. She did not push it. She simply let go. The boat drifted, slowly, carried by a current that had not been there a moment before. Izanagi stood beside her. He did not speak. He did not reach to stop it. They watched until the boat became a small dark dot. They watched until the dot became nothing. The dark sea closed back up around the place where their first child had been. They returned to the hall. They tried again. The second child came. Soft, pale limbs that could not yet remember themselves. They did not name this one. They wove another boat. Maybe you know that feeling. When something good keeps almost happening, and almost is somehow worse than nothing. That was the shape of the days on the small island. The cypress trees were patient. The sea was patient. The pillar at the summit of Onogoro stood without complaint. Only the 2 gods began to feel, quietly, that something was wrong. It was Izanami who said it first. late in the day, sitting beside Izanagi on the warm white sand. Something we did, something we said, the order was wrong. He did not argue. He had felt it too, that small wrong note from the first circling of the pillar. The vow she had spoken first. The slight reversal, he nodded. Not to the pillar. Yet. First up. Back along the bridge of mist. Back to the long row of veiled gods. They had to ask. The path of mist appeared again. The same gentle ramp of pale rainbow light, sloping back upward this time. They climbed it slowly. Their robes felt heavier on the way up. They reached the bridge, then the cloud, then the platform. The long row of veiled gods waited for them, exactly as before, in their pale gold robes and white silk veils. They knelt at the central altar. The steady flame did not flicker. They explained slowly what had happened. The hall, the boats, the small unnamed children carried out to sea. The veiled gods listened in their long quiet way. Then, for the first time since giving the spear, they spoke. One slow voice from many veiled mouths. It was the order. She spoke first, said the slow voice. She greeted you first. The order was the wrong order. Return to the pillar. Walk again. This time, let him speak first. They did not ask why. They did not push back. They had been asked to invent a marriage, and they had, almost. Almost is not nothing. Almost is what asks to be tried again. They rose. They turned. They walked back along the long row of veiled gods, back across the cloud, back to the place where the bridge of mist began its arch downward. This time, walking down the bridge felt different. Not lighter, not heavier, just clearer. They knew now what they had not known before. They knew the small thing that had been wrong. Onogoro was waiting for them when they arrived. The cypress trees had not moved. The dark sea had not changed. The pillar at the summit stood exactly as they had left it. They walked up the slope, slowly, together. Each step retraced, the white sand below them, the cypress on either side. The vermilion of the pillar growing closer at the top. At the pillar, they paused. They looked at each other. There was no need to speak now. The order was clear. He would walk to the right. She would walk to the left. They began slowly. The world had granted them a second beginning. The cypress trees did not move. The sea below did not breathe. Two robed silhouettes circled a vermilion pillar in opposite directions. They met behind the pillar, face to face. He looked at her this time. The whole world held its breath at the small island in the middle of the dark sea. Izanagi spoke first this time. How beautiful! What a fine young woman! His voice was steady, quiet. The cypress grove below them seemed to lean very slightly closer to listen. Izanami answered. How beautiful! What a fine young man! Her voice was soft, pleased, the same words as before, the same pleasure, but this time, in the right order. Something shifted in the morning, not visibly, not loudly. The kind of shift you only notice afterward, when something that had been almost right is suddenly, fully, simply right. Their hands met. This time the meeting felt held. The whole world held it with them. Heaven held it. The sea held it. The cypress grove on the slope below held it. They walked back down the slope together. The cypress trees seemed brighter. The white sand at the foot of the hill seemed warmer. The hall in the cypress clearing was waiting, quiet, lit, ready. Inside the hall this time, they did not speak much. They had said the only words that needed saying. They knelt on the tatami floor. They breathed. They began again. This time, when the morning came, the child Izanami held in her arms was different. Limbs that knew themselves. A small, clear cry. Eyes that opened, looked, and stayed open. This first child was named Awaji, not a god, not a person, a piece of land. An island, small and green, that lay just south of where Onogoro stood, their first true child. Awaji rose from the dark sea exactly as Onogoro had, a low pale crust at first, then a hill of green. But this time, the gods watching from the bridge above were not surprised. After Awaji came another, a larger island, this one shaped like a four-petaled blossom. They named it Io, and within it, 4 faces, 4 corners, 4 future names Shiko. then a triple island, 3 pieces close together. Oki. Then a great long island shaped like a sleeping dog, Tsukushi. The southern part of what would later be called Kyushu. Then Aiki. Then Tsushima, 2 halves separated by a narrow channel. Then Sado alone in the cold northern sea, each one a child, each one rising at the right time. And then slowly, last and largest, the Great Spine, Honshu, stretching from south to north. Mountains down its center like the bones of a long sleeping animal. 8 islands in all. Together they were called Tiyashima, the Great 8-Island Country. The name Japan would still be very far away, but the place itself, the body of it, now existed. 2 gods on a small green hill looked out at what they had made. They did not say to each other, "We did it." They simply stood and watched the islands hold their shape. Time on Onogoro began to stretch out longer between the small bright moments. There was no rush now. The world had a body. Now it could begin to grow the things bodies hold. Their next children were not islands. They were things that lived in islands. The first wind, the first river, the first mountain, each born quietly, each named, each given a place in the world. The wind they called Shinatsuhiko. Wide-shouldered, soft-voiced, the air that lifted leaves from trees on the islands and carried them between mountains. He was born first. Then Tiyamatsumi, the spirit of all mountains. Heavy, patient, the kind of presence that does not move and does not need to. He took his place in the long ridges of central Honshu. Then Mizuhanum, the spirit of clear water, of springs, of every shallow river that catches first light at the bottom of a mountain valley. Where she went, fish followed. Then the spirit of the trees, Kukunochi. Then the spirit of meadows, Kayanoheim. The world was filling, each child a new face in it. Each face a new way the islands could be alive. Izanami carried these children one after another. The hall on Onogoro filled with quiet births and quiet namings. None were monstrous. None were wrong. The order was right now. The world was answering. She did not seem tired. The bringing forth of mountains and rivers, of winds and meadows, came from somewhere in her that did not run out. Izanagi watched her with a kind of awe. Outside the hall, the islands were no longer empty. Cherry trees on the hills of Awaji burst into pale pink. Pine forests deepened on Shikoku. Sato's cold cliffs softened with wild rhododendron. Rivers found their way down from the central mountains of Honshu and reached the sea. Wind shaped clouds over the inland mountains. Rain came for the first time and the islands drank it. Snow came too, up in the highest peaks. The first snow Japan had ever known fell on a mountain that did not yet have a name. The flakes settled on gray stone they held. From above, on the bridge of mist, the older gods watched. They did not speak. They did not signal. They had given the spear and the order. The rest was for the 2 younger ones. From below, on the islands themselves, no one yet looked up. There were no people to look. The first humans were still a long way off. The land was being prepared for them. One day Izanami carried again. This time something felt different. Not wrong, different. The hall seemed warmer than before. The oil lamps burned a shade brighter. She breathed more carefully. Izanagi noticed too. He brought her cool water from the spring at the foot of the hill. He kept the hall doors open to the cypress breeze. He sat very close. He waited. The next island was born, then the next mountain, then the spirit of the rocks, then the spirit of the salt of the sea. Each one came healthy, each one took its place. But the warmth in the hall did not fade between births. It grew. The lamps brightened. Izanami's skin began very faintly to flush. The cypress breeze through the open door felt cooler than before. She did not say she felt different. She would not have wanted to worry him. But Izanagi watched her closely between births now. He brought more water. He stayed nearer to the hall. The births continued. The spirit of harvest grain. The spirit of fishing nets. The spirit of the loom. Each one steady. Each one in its place. The world was almost ready for people. Almost. There was one more name to give. One more child waiting. The lamps inside the hall burned brighter still. Izanami felt heat now. even when the cypress door stood open to evening. This is the part the myths handle gently. Some tellings say 9 more islands were born first. Others say 100 small spirits, the spirits of every doorway, every well, every cooking fire. But every telling agrees on what came near the end. The last great child, the one whose birth the cypress trees of Onogoro felt before he came. The fire, the burning. Stay with this, the story is about to bend. What rises from her now will mark every fire that has ever burned on these islands, and break the marriage that built them. Izanami knelt at the cedar platform. The heat now was real. She did not speak. She did not call for Izanagi. She simply bowed her head and let the next child come. Outside, Izanagi was at the foot of the slope, carrying water from the spring. He had not yet noticed the light from the hall, the way it had begun to glow brighter than oil could burn. He felt it before he saw it. The cypress trees seemed to lean. The air between them rippled with a heat that did not belong to summer evening. He set the bucket down. He began to run. He reached the cypress clearing. The hall was not on fire, worse. The light was inside it, pouring from inside. The paper shoji doors glowed bright amber from within. He pushed the door aside. Inside the hall, too bright to look at directly. Izanami at the cedar platform, hands pressed to her abdomen, which glowed red-orange. Her hair lifted in heat. Her mouth was open. Izanagi froze in the doorway. He had walked into many births. He had never walked into this. He could not move. He could not speak. He could only watch. And then from her, he came. Not wrapped in cloth, not pale-skinned. A child of fire, skin of glowing coal, hair of living flame, born already burning, born already himself. Kagutsuchi, the fire god, the child neither Izanagi nor Izanami had asked for, but who had been waiting all along, somewhere between heaven and the dark sea, for his moment to be named. He was beautiful. That is what almost no telling says aloud, but he was bright. Whole. Already alive in a way the others had taken time to become. He was also burning. His warmth was every warmth, every cooking fire, every winter hearth, every torch. It was needed. It would always be needed. But here, at his mother's body, that warmth did not stop. Izanami fell slowly, the way a tall tree falls, not all at once, but with one slow lean then another. Then the whole length of her down on the warm cedar platform. The vermilion pillar at the center of Onogoro is one of the oldest images in Japanese religion. Almost every Shinto shrine still has one. The central post. The axis, the place from which everything is measured. The circle around the pillar matters too. To this day, on certain shrine festivals, worshippers walk a circuit around a central post. Right side, left side, meeting at the back. The first marriage encoded in ritual. Even the order of who speaks first survived. In old Japanese weddings, the groom's vow comes before the bride's. It is one of those small details traced back, quietly to a small island and a vermilion column. The Shimenawa rope, the white twisted cord around sacred trees and stones, is the same rope they used. The folded paper streamers, the shide, are the same streamers they hung. Old things stay. This is why the story stays. Every torii gate you have ever seen in a photograph, every shrine bell, every white paper streamer, leads back here, to one small green hill, to 2 gods, to a column of red wood. But back on Onogoro, back in the burning hall, Izanami was lying down, slowly. The cedar platform had begun to char beneath her shoulders. The infant fire god lay quiet beside her. The amber light dimmed, slowly. Kagutsuchi's flames had begun to settle now that he was outside her body. His mother had shielded the world from his fire by burning first. Izanagi crossed the room. He did not run. Running was for fear of what might happen. This had already happened. He sat. He gathered Izanami's hand into both of his. Her hand was very warm, not burning anymore, just very, very warm, the way stone is warm long after the sun has gone. She did not speak for a long moment. Slowly. Her eyes were still her eyes, the same calm dark almond shape, the same long lashes, but further away now, as if already on the other side of something. She did not say, "I love you." She said something quieter. "Look after the boy. He didn't choose his fire. None of them do." He nodded. He did not trust himself to speak. He held her hand in both of his and pressed his forehead very gently to her knuckles. The cedar platform around them ticked softly as it cooled. She breathed. He listened, each breath shallower than the one before it. Outside the hall, the cypress grove had gone very still. Even the sea around the island had gone glassy and silent. From her tears, slow, hot tears that fell onto the cedar, small spirits rose, the spirit of weeping, the spirit of mountain springs. Her grief itself becoming part of the world she had made. Even now, in dying, she was still creating. The act of making did not stop because she was leaving. It was who she was. The world had her name in it, it always would. She breathed once more. Then she did not breathe again. The hall was very quiet. Izanagi did not lift his forehead from her hand. The cedar platform was almost cool now beneath them. He did not move. He did not weep, not yet. The grief had not arrived in its full size. It was still standing very politely at the door of the hall, waiting to be let in. Time inside the hall stopped. Outside, the cypress trees stood as if the world had stopped. They knew somehow that their first mother had just laid down. They knew they held very still. When Izanagi finally lifted his head, the hall was dark. The lamps had gone out. The amber glow had faded to nothing. Only the very faint warmth of the cedar floor remained. He stayed all night. He did not sleep. He did not move. The infant Kagutsuchi slept beside him, flames now soft and low, his small chest rising and falling. The world had gone wrong. When dawn came, pink, indifferent, he carried her down to the base of the cypress hill. He laid her on a woven straw mat. He folded her hands across her chest. He placed a single white plum branch under them. The cypress trees seemed to lean over her. The dark sea seemed to come closer to the white sand. The whole island bent toward this small, still figure on the woven straw mat. The old gods on the bridge above did not come down. They had given the spear and the order. The rest had been theirs to do. They had done it. The cost was theirs to keep. Some tellings say Izanagi took the small fire god in his arms then, and looked at him for a long time. Some say his face hardened in that long look. Some say nothing softened it again for years. Other tellings say he laid Kagutsuchi gently down beside Izanami's body, as if to say, "You sleep with her tonight. Tomorrow we deal with what you are." The infant slept. Izanagi sat all day at the base of the cypress hill. He did not eat. He did not drink. He did not look at the chain of islands they had made. He looked only at her face. A small wind came. The white plum branch under her folded hands stirred. He did not move. The wind passed. The branch went still again. The cypress trees breathed once and held their breath. Toward evening, his shoulders began to shake. The grief had finally been let in. It was very large. It filled the cypress grove. It pressed on the white sand and on the dark glassy sea. He wept the way mountains weep, slowly, with stone in it. He did not cry out. He did not call her name. He simply sat at the base of the cypress hill and shook and shook. When his shaking finally stopped, the moon was up. He stood, slowly. His robe was creased. His hair had fallen completely from its topknot. His face had hardened again, but in a different way. He looked at the small figure of Kagutsuchi sleeping beside Izanami, the child of fire, the reason. He picked up the heavenly spear from where he had set it down. The blade caught the moonlight. The myths handle this part very carefully. He raised the spear. He did not hesitate. The fire god was a child. The fire god had also burned his mother to death. Both things were true at once. He brought the spear down, not in rage, slower than rage, quieter. The way a man cuts down a tree he has known for years, because the tree is already dead and must be moved. From Kagutsuchi's body, broken open by the spear, new gods rose. The spirit of the volcano, the spirit of iron, the spirit of the lava flow. Even in death, the fire kept making things. Even Kagutsuchi's blood made gods. Drops on stone became spirits of weapons. Drops on water became spirits of the rapid mountain river. Even the fire that took her could not stop being a maker. When it was done, Izanagi let the spear fall. It rested on the white sand at his feet. He did not pick it up again. He did not look at where Kagutsuchi had been. He only looked at her. He bent down. He gathered her into his arms again. He carried her up the slope of the small green island. The cypress trees moved slightly as they passed. The dark sea was very still below. He carried her past the cypress grove, past the burnt hall, past the place where the small reed boats had been launched. He carried her all the way to the rocky outcrop at the summit. He laid her gently at the foot of the vermilion pillar. The same pillar they had circled together to make a marriage. The same pillar where her vow had once come at the wrong time. The wind came again, soft. The white Shimenawa rope at the base of the pillar moved slightly. The folded paper streamers shivered. The world that had been finished was, finally, admitting to a wound. Izanagi stood. He looked at her one last time. Then he turned. He walked back down the slope. The cypress trees did not move as he passed. The world was about to learn what grief in a god can do. 3 nights passed. He did not eat. He did not sleep. He sat at the base of the cypress hill, on the white sand. He looked out at the dark sea between the 8 islands. On the 3rd night, he stood up. The grief had not gone, but it had decided something inside him. He looked toward the eastern horizon. Something old and simple had occurred to him. He would go and bring her back. That was the thing that had occurred to him. He did not yet know how. But he knew where she had gone. He had heard the older gods speak of it, Yomi. Yomi, the place under places. The land where the dead go. There was, he had heard, a gate. Hidden in the mountains of central Honshu, black stone, white cords, a way down for the patient. He turned his back on the small island where they had stirred a world together. He took the first step toward the mountains of the great long island. He would walk all the way. He would find that gate. Heaven did not stop him. The veiled gods on the cloud platform had given the spear and the order. They did not give permission for what came after, nor did they give refusal. The path Izanagi took was the path he had made. Across the dark sea past Awaji, past the 4-piddled island of Shikoku, toward the great long spine of Honshu. He did not stop on any of them. He passed the rice fields his children had begun. He passed the early cherry trees. He passed the first quiet shoreline villages, empty still, waiting for people to come. He looked at none of them. The mountains of central Honshu were where he was headed. The deep ones. The ones whose peaks were already wearing snow. Somewhere in those peaks, a hidden valley held the black stone gate. Days passed, then weeks. He did not eat. He did not need to. The grief was its own food. The wind from his son Shinatsuiko softened around him as he climbed past the high passes. At each high pass he asked the wind, "Where is the gate?" The wind did not answer with words, but the wind moved, sometimes east, sometimes west, sometimes north. He followed it. He passed mountain villages that did not yet have people, empty wooden frames of houses already built, paper screen doors set against future families. He walked through silent streets and out the far side. He passed forests that smelled of cedar and wet stone. He passed clear mountain streams the spirit Mizuhanum had only just placed. He drank once from one of them. The water was cold and bright. The cedar gave way to pine. The pine gave way to bare rock. The bare rock gave way to a narrow valley nobody had named yet. The wind died completely there he had arrived. At the deepest end of the valley, set into the mountainside, stood the gate. Black stone. 2 thick uprights. A curved crossbeam. White prayer cords hung from the beam. Older than anyone who had hung them. He stopped a long way from the gate. He looked at it. He understood, suddenly, that gates of this kind do not open. You walk through them. The stone does not move, you move. Here's the part the myths never make obvious. The stories that have been told about gods going to find their dead, across every culture, almost never end well. He must have known that. He walked anyway. At the threshold he paused. The stone was very cold. The white prayer cords moved very slightly above his head, even though there was no wind in the valley. He stepped through. The light from the valley behind him grew dimmer with each step. After 10 steps it was gone. After 50 steps the air changed. After 100 steps the only light was the faint blue spirit glow of the tunnel itself. The tunnel sloped gently down. The walls were not natural rock. They were polished black, like volcanic stone smoothed by very long use. There were no markings, there were no torches. Only the spirit lights drifted softly past. He walked for a long time. Long enough that he began to wonder whether the tunnel had an end. The grief in his chest grew quieter as he walked, replaced by something else, stillness, the long stillness of below. He passed shapes in the tunnel walls, faint outlines, of things that had once walked here and were now resting. He did not stop to look. He had come for one face. He kept walking. The tunnel widened, slowly. The smooth walls drew apart. The ceiling rose. The drifting blue spirit lights multiplied, until they were everywhere, like soft snow falling sideways through dark air. And then the tunnel opened into a hall, vast, black. The walls of polished volcanic stone arched up into darkness too high to see. The floor was smooth obsidian, the Hall of Yomi. At the far end of the hall, faint in the spirit light, stood a long low cedar table. Behind the table, in shadow, a figure, standing very still, hair flowing down to the hips. His breath caught. The figure was the right shape, the right height, the right slope of shoulder, the right way of holding her hands folded at the waist. He took one slow step forward. The figure spoke. Her voice was the same voice. Calm, quiet, unhurried. You should not have come, my husband. The food I have eaten here, you cannot uneat for me. He understood vaguely what she was saying. To eat the food of a place was to belong to it. She had eaten in Yomi. Yomi had her now. Still, he had walked very far, he answered. Come back with me. The world we made is not finished. The cherry trees on Awaji are blooming. The rice fields of Honshu are golden. Our children, our true children, need you. She did not move. She did not step into the light. He could see the curve of her shoulder, the fall of her long hair, but not her face. The shadow at the far end of the hall held it. She spoke again, softer this time. I will go and ask. There are gods of this place. They may permit it. They may not. You must wait here. You must. And I am asking now. You must not look at me until I return. Stay with this. The ones who promise not to look, almost always look. Across every culture, every retelling, every old story about going down to find a wife. Maybe you already feel where this is going. But he kept his promise at first. He waited. The hall was very quiet. Time, in the underworld, did not move the way time moved above. He could not tell if it was minutes or weeks. The blue spirit lights drifted slowly past. The silence deepened. He began to grow uneasy. He began to wonder whether she had truly gone to ask, or whether, maybe, she had simply gone. He stood. The stillness around him was very long. He took the small bronze comb from the back of his hair. He broke off the end tooth. He held it up. He whispered fire into it. The tooth caught light. A torch in his hand. The smallest torch ever lit. One bronze tooth, one small flame. He started to walk in the direction she had gone. He did not run, he walked. He passed the long cedar table. He passed the empty shadow where she had stood. He entered a corridor of black stone behind the table. The corridor was narrower. The drifting blue lights were fewer. The corridor opened into another chamber. Smaller. Lower. The smell here was different, older, heavier. The way wet stone smells after a long time without sun. He held the small flame higher. The flame found something on the floor of the chamber. Long, pale, lying on its back. He took a step closer. He raised the flame. He saw, for the first time, what she had become. She was lying on her back. The body was hers. The shape was hers. But her skin was gray and mottled. Her hair was matted, fallen out in patches. Her eyes were hollow. The food of Yomi had taken her body the way time takes a body left forgotten. He stepped back. Without meaning to, the small flame trembled in his hand. He did not cry out. He did not weep. He could not. The shock was deeper than weeping. He simply stepped back. And then, terribly, she opened her eyes. Or what had been her eyes? She lifted her head. She looked at him by the light of his small flame, and for one long moment she did not speak. Then she did. Her voice was the voice he knew. Calm, quiet, unhurried, but altered now, heavier. You looked at me. I told you not to. The shame is now mine. He could not answer. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. The small flame in his hand trembled. The shadow he cast against the dark stone wall behind him trembled with it. She rose to her feet. Slowly, the fall of gray hair, the lift of mottled gray arms, the thin black serpents that twined now around both her wrists. He saw all of it. He could not look away. She took one step toward him. He took one step back. She took another. He took another. They began in silence. The slow, cruel dance of two people who have both already lost. You should not have looked, she said again. Her voice did not rise. It only deepened. Now I cannot return. And worse, now you have seen. You have seen what no one was supposed to see. She turned her face slightly. Toward the deeper dark of the chamber, she called out, without raising her voice. 3 names that he did not know. The dark stone walls answered. 3 figures stepped out of the dark side of the chamber. Tall, gaunt, bone gray, eyes solid black with no whites. Their mouths drawn back. The hags of Yomi. The Shikome, they had been called. Bring him to me, Izanami said, quietly. The hags' mouths drew back further. They began to come forward. Izanagi turned. He ran. He ran the way he had walked in. Back through the narrow corridor of black stone. Back into the vast hall. Back across the polished obsidian floor. Back toward the long sloping tunnel that climbed upward to the gate. Behind him, they came, the 3 Shikome, their bare feet silent on dark stone, their hair flying, their hands outstretched, their mouths still pulled back over small sharp teeth. They did not call out. They simply gained. He reached the long tunnel. He climbed. The slope was harder going up than down. The drifting blue spirit lights seemed dimmer now. The Shikome were closer. He could hear their feet now, soft, quick, gaining. Stay with this. It matters before the end. What he does in this tunnel will set the rule, in Japan, for what the living do when the dead refuse to stay dead. Salt, peaches, a boundary, a rope. He took something from his belt. The black silken ties holding his hair. He flung them backward into the tunnel. They twisted in the air. They landed, somehow as a thick vine of grapes, soft, dark, ripe. The Shikome stopped to eat. He used the time. He climbed faster. The slope of the tunnel rose more steeply now. The blue spirit lights began to thin. The smallest hint of pale gate light. Far ahead, still very far. When the Shikome had eaten the grapes, they stood. They came on again. Faster than before, he heard them. He did not turn his head. He took another thing from his hair. A small bronze clung it backward. The teeth broke off in the air. They landed on dark stone and grew, into thin pale shoots, into bamboo, into a small wild grove of new young bamboo trees in the middle of the tunnel. The Shikome stopped again. Bamboo shoots in spring are eaten in Japan to this day. Even the underworld hags could not pass them by. They knelt. They began to dig the new shoots up. They began to feed. He kept climbing. The pale gate light grew larger ahead. He could see, now, the dark frame of the Torii. The 2 black uprights, the curved crossbeam, the white prayer cords still hanging. But behind him, the sound of more feet, many more feet. Izanami had sent something larger now, an army of the dead. Soft, quick, never resting, closing fast in the dark. He reached the gate. He stumbled through it. Cold, pale air of the high mountain valley hit his face. He fell. He rolled. He came up again on his knees in the narrow valley, between the cliffs. He looked back. The dark mouth of the gate. The white prayer cords still hanging, and, coming up through it, pale figures already at the threshold, not stopping, not held back by daylight at all. He scrambled to his feet. The narrow valley sloped upward away from the gate. Above and ahead, at the high pass, the cliffs narrowed even further. There was a place there, a place where the path almost closed. Hira Pass, the narrowest place in the valley. There was a great gray boulder there, set off to one side, half buried in old earth, big as a small hill. He had passed it on his way down, he remembered. He ran toward it, up the narrowing valley, past the cliffs, toward the great boulder. The pursuit behind him grew. The Shikome had been joined now, maybe, by something worse. He did not turn to see. Some tellings say he found 3 peaches growing on a small wild tree at the foot of the boulder. Others say the peaches were already in his hand. Either way, 3 peaches. 3 small white peaches. He held them. The pursuit reached the narrow valley. The Shikome were closer now, their feet beating soft and quick on cold stone, their hair flying back. He did not have much time. He held up the first peach. He threw the first peach. It struck the rocky path between him and the lead Shikome. The peach broke open. Soft pink juice ran on cold stone. The lead Shikome stopped, bent, stared, could not pass. He threw the second peach. The same. Another Shikome stopped, baffled, unable to pass the broken pink fruit on the path. He threw the third. 3 Shikome stood now in the valley, halted, staring at 3 soft pink stains on cold stone. This is why, in Japan, peaches are sacred, the fruit that holds the dead at the threshold. Even today, peach branches are placed at certain shrines, old protection, older than memory, borrowed from this exact moment. But the Shikome were not the last. Behind them, at the dark mouth of the gate, far below in the valley, Izanagi saw movement again. A taller figure, slender, the fall of long hair. She had come herself. She did not call out. She simply walked, slowly, up the narrow valley, past the stopped Shikome, past the broken peaches, toward him, each step deliberate, each step nearer. He understood. He understood, suddenly and finally, what he had to do. He stepped off the path. He set both hands against the great gray boulder beside him. He pushed. There are old stories like this in many places. Orpheus walking down to find Eurydice and being told not to look back. Persephone eating the seeds of the underworld. The hero who goes for a wife and finds her changed. The pattern is older than any single myth. Cultures everywhere have known what Izanagi is learning, hand pressed to the boulder. Some doors are not for going through twice. Some loves do not return. Maybe you've been there. Not at a literal gate, but at a moment when something, someone, could not come back. When you understood, in that moment, that the work of the rest of your life would be carrying that forward. This is what the older myths know. They are not really about gods. They are about the small private moments when you alone stand at a boulder and decide what kind of world you will live in next. Izanagi was about to make that decision. The boulder was not yet moving. His hands were on it. The Hall of Grief was at his back. The valley between the cliffs held its breath. He pushed. The boulder did not move. He pushed harder. His shoulders shook. The cold pale light caught on his strained pale arms. The boulder, slowly, very slowly, began to lean. Slowly at first, then faster. Half-buried earth gave way around its base. The boulder tipped fully forward and rolled into the narrow gap of Hira Pass between the cliffs. It came to rest with a deep, low sound. The valley was sealed. From the other side of the boulder, quietly, her voice came. Quiet, unhurried, even now. If you do this, I will take 1,000 of yours every day. I will not stop. He answered. Climb, unhurried, even now. Then I will make 1,500 new ones every day. I will not stop either. The world will go on. Izanami, I am sorry. She did not answer back. He waited. He pressed his hand once against the cold gray stone of the boulder. He pressed his forehead once against the same place. He closed his eyes. After a long moment he stood up. He walked away from the boulder. He did not look back. He had become the kind of god who knew now that some doors must be closed by the living. But he was changed. He had been to a place no living god was supposed to go. He had touched what no living god was supposed to touch. He had to wash this off. He walked east, off the high mountains, down through the cedar forests, down past the rice fields, down to the warm coast of southern Kyushu, where a clear, shallow stream ran through a grove of citrus trees. This stream is called Tachibana no Odo, the Strait of Orange Trees. It is a real place still. People bathe in it today in white robes before approaching certain shrines. The first such bath was his. He folded his outer robe. He laid it on a smooth gray stone at the water's edge. He stepped down into the clear, cold stream. The water rose to his waist. The current moved slowly past him. He cupped both hands. He brought clear, cold water to his face. He poured it over his head. The first purification ritual in Japan. From now on, every Shinto shrine would have a small basin like this at its entrance. As the water ran from him, more spirits rose. From his left eye, a brilliant goddess of the sun, Amaterasu, the light that would shine on every island they had made. Their daughter, born of grief and washing. From his right eye, a quieter goddess, Tsukuyomi, the moon, pale, calm, the soft light that would watch over every sleeper on the islands at night. Their second child of the stream. From his nose, Susanoo, the sea wind, the wild brother who would ride waves and break things and also, eventually, save things. The third child, born already noisy. 3 children of the washing, the sun, the moon, the storm. They would inherit what their parents had begun. Amaterasu would come to rule the heavens. Tsukuyomi the night, Susanoo the seas and lower world. Izanagi watched them rise. He did not move from the cold water. He did not call them to him. He only watched. They were his and not his. They were what came after. They were the new world. When the 3 were gone, risen, taken their places, the stream around him was very still. The cold water moved slowly past his waist. A single white citrus blossom drifted down on the current. He let it pass. He stepped out of the stream. He let the water run from his shoulders, his back, his arms. He stood for a long time on the smooth gray stones at the bank. The sun warmed him slowly. He picked up his folded robe. He put it on. He walked out of the citrus grove into the open coast. The Pacific stretched east in front of him. Soft waves, soft afternoon light. The world had survived. He walked north, along the coast, past small empty villages still waiting for people, past quiet harbors, past wild peach trees that would soon be sacred to 1,000 later generations. He did not stop. He walked for many days. The coast of Kyushu became the coast of Honshu. The cypress trees of Onogoro lay far to the south now. He did not return to the small green hill. He could not yet. His daughter Amaterasu rose every morning over the islands. Her brilliant gold light touched the cherry trees of Awaji, the rice fields of Honshu, the snow on the high mountains. The world she warmed was the one her parents had made. His son Tsukuyomi rose every evening. Pale silver light over the dark sea, soft moonlight on rice fields, soft silver on the snow of the central peaks. The night the islands had not had, finally had a guardian. His third child Susanoo did not stay quietly anywhere. He cried, he raged, he left storms wherever he went. The sea wind rose. White waves grew tall along the coasts. He had a difficulty no one had taught him how to carry. Izanagi heard his sons crying from far away. He understood. The boy was missing his mother. The boy was missing the mother he had never known, the one sealed beyond the gray boulder of Hira Pass. Izanagi did not know what to say. He sat down on a flat stone on the northern coast. He waited until Amaterasu had set in the west. He waited until Tsukuyomi was high. He waited until Susanoo's storm had quieted somewhere far. Only then he rose again. He walked further. He did not have a destination now. He was a god whose work was finished. He had made islands. He had lost a wife. He had birthed 3 children of light and storm. There was nothing left for him to make. He turned, finally, inland, up into the deep mountains of central Honshu, not toward the gate of Yomi this time, toward a quieter place, a high valley where snow was already falling, a place where a god could rest. He found the place he was looking for. A small clearing in the deep cedar forest. A flat gray stone. A soft fall of snow already beginning to settle. He sat down on the stone. He folded his hands in his lap. He looked at the snow falling. He thought perhaps of cherry blossoms. He thought perhaps of the white plum branch under her folded hands. He thought perhaps of nothing at all, the way old gods can sometimes stop thinking. The cedar trees around him grew very still. Snow gathered on his shoulders and on his folded hands. The snow did not melt. The world that he had stirred from dark water was holding itself together without him now. It was time. He closed his eyes. The snow continued to fall. The cedar trees did not move. Somewhere far away, on a small green hill, a white plum branch lay under folded hands at the foot of a vermilion pillar. Some tellings say he became a quiet shrine on that mountain. A small shrine still visited today by a few people who climb the long path. Soft amber lanterns, folded white paper streamers, the same patient stillness he sat in. Other tellings say he simply walked into the snow, and the snow took him, that he was the cold pale light that touches the cedar of central Honshu in midwinter, that he is still there, still watching, still quiet. Other tellings still say neither, that he walked back, eventually, to the small green hill of Onogoro, that he laid down beside her at the foot of the vermilion pillar, that whether the gods of Yomi let him keep her. No telling says. Yomi, in old Japan, was not always a place. Sometimes it was a state, the condition of being unreachable, by weather, by season, by death, by simply having grown apart. The boundary stones at Hira Pass were boundaries within everything. It is what every culture eventually names. The Romans called it Tartarus. The Greeks called it Hades. The Norse called it Hell. The Polynesians Po. Everyone, sooner or later, names the place beyond the boulder. But Yomi was not punishment. It was simply the place those who had eaten its food now lived. There was no fire here, no torment, only the quiet hall, the long cedar table, the drifting blue spirit lights, and a Izanami at its head. She became a queen of that place, not by punishment, not by choice, by the simple slow law that makes everyone, eventually, the steward of where they end up. She kept the long cedar table. She held the patient blue light. She kept her promise to 1,000 each day, every day. Without rest, the world above kept its promise also, 1,500 new ones, every day. Without rest, the two promises balanced. The world stayed in motion. This is the rule the story leaves behind. The world is not a fixed thing. It is a pact, a daily pact between what comes and what goes, held in place by two promises made through a gray stone boulder. Stay with this. It matters. The Japanese understanding of death is in this story. There is no fire. There is no torment. There is only a different room, a long table, a queen who used to be your wife, and a daily pact. This is why Japanese ghost stories are quiet. Why the dead in Japanese folktales sit at tables, fold cranes, walk along old streams. Why no one in those stories burns. The roots are in this hall, in this long cedar table, in her. And the white prayer cords on every torii gate. And the white folded paper streamers. They are reminders, every one of them, of the cords that hung above Yomi's gate. The boundary held by paper, by rope, by memory. Even today, when a Japanese household knows someone has died, salt is set at the threshold of the home. The salt is a small Hira Pass, a small gray boulder, a small reminder that some things stay on the other side of certain doors. But back to the small green hill of Onogoro, where the story began. The cypress trees still grow there. The vermilion pillar still stands. The white Shimenawa rope at its base is renewed each year. People visit. They leave white plum branches. Tonight, somewhere on that small green hill, a soft amber lantern is lit at the base of the pillar. Someone has laid a single white plum branch there. The cypress trees have not moved. The dark sea around the hill is glassy and silent. Maybe the lantern keeps her warm. Maybe it keeps him company, maybe both. Maybe the small lantern is just a small lantern. But it has been there, in some form, for a very long time, long after the gods went quiet. The 8 islands stretch around the small hill in their familiar arc. Awaji to its south, Shikoku to its west. The long spine of Honshu curving north, Kaoshuki Tsushima, Sado in the cold north. All of them, children of 2 gods on a misty bridge. The cherry trees of Awaji still blossom every spring. The rice fields of Honshu still ripen every fall. The snow still settles on the high central peaks every winter. The Torii gates still stand at every shrine. The story is held by the islands themselves. This is the climax of the old story. Not a battle, not a victory, not a parade. The 8 islands holding themselves in their arc. The Boulder at Hira Pass keeping its quiet seal. The long cedar table in Yomi never empty. And the world above never stopping its making. 2 gods stirred a sea. 2 gods built a pillar. 2 gods walked a circle in the wrong order. 2 gods walked it again in the right one. The 8 green islands rose between them. 1 god burned, bringing forth the fire of the world. 1 god ran from the gate when looking back betrayed his promise. 1 god rolled a gray boulder into a narrow pass. 1 god kept her quiet station at a long cedar table. Both kept their promises after that. 1,000 each day. 1,500 each day. The world never stopped. The arc of islands never moved from where the 2 of them, very young, very still, had stirred them up. This is the part most people never reach. The part the myths usually summarize as, they had many children. The part you have stayed for. Thank you for staying. Thank you for walking the long path with them. They are quiet now. The story is quiet. The 8 islands are quiet. The lantern on the small green hill is still lit. The cedar table in Yomi is still tended. We are almost, at the end. There is a thing this story knows. The thing is that creation and loss are one act. They cannot be separated. The same hands that shaped the islands also folded across her chest at the end. The Greeks knew this too. So did the Egyptians. So did the Norse. Every culture's oldest creation stories have a death folded inside them. As if the world cannot fully be made without something also being given up. This is not punishment. This is not unfairness. It is simply the shape of making. To make is to spend. To bring something forward is to give something up. The islands of Japan cost what islands cost. Maybe you felt this. The work that mattered most to you cost the most. The thing you most wanted to give to the world took something out of you. That's not a flaw in the work. That's the shape of work. There is another thing this story knows. The line between worlds is drawn from grief. The boulder at Hira Pass is set there by a husband who could not look away. The Torii gates at every shrine remember. The Torii gate is more than a doorway. It is a small Hira Pass, a small boundary stone. Each time you walk through one, you are crossing the same kind of line he crossed. From outer to inner, from ordinary to held. At every shrine, before crossing through, visitors stop at a small basin. They wash their hands. They rinse their mouth. They are doing what Izanagi did at the Strait of Orange Trees. They may not know it. The action remembers anyway. At every Shinto wedding, vows are exchanged. Sake is poured into 3 shallow cups, shared back and forth. The pattern is older than any of the people present. It comes from a vermilion column on a small green hill. At every Japanese funeral, salt is offered at the threshold. The salt is not magic, it is a memory, a small gray boulder, a small Hira Pass. A small reminder that the door has been closed properly behind us. The story is everywhere in Japan, in the gates, in the cords, in the paper streamers, in the salt, in the order of vows, in the soft amber lanterns at small shrines. The country has not forgotten. The country still remembers. There is a third thing this story knows. Love that cannot bring back is still love. The walking down. The torch from the calm tooth. The peaches thrown back. The boulder rolled into place. All of those were love. Even the closing of the door was love. The world had to keep its shape. Children had to keep being born. The cherry trees had to keep blooming. Closing the door was how he kept his promise to the islands. And to her. Maybe you've had to do that. Close a door. Set a boundary stone. Roll something into place that did not move easily. And do it because you loved someone, not in spite of loving them. This story does not call that failure. It calls it the work of a god. The two gods who built Japan also closed a door inside it. Both acts came from the same pair of hands. Both acts were necessary. There is a fourth thing this story knows. Even when the order is wrong, the order can be tried again. The first walk around the pillar was not the end. The veiled god sent them back. They walked again. The world began. That is not nothing. That is much. Many of the oldest stories tell us a wrong move has consequences forever. This story tells us, sometimes you walk it again. Sometimes the right order is just the second order. Maybe today, something you did fell out of order. A word said before its time. A choice made before you were ready. Tonight, on a small green hill in the dark sea, a vermilion column stands. It has held a re-walking before. There is a final thing this story knows. The world is held by two patient promises. 1,000, 1,500, every day, without rest. The thing you hold, the thing you let go, both, every day. That is what a day is in the deep old understanding. Not just hours, not just sun and moon, a pact, a balance. Something you hold, something you release, and tomorrow the same pact again gently, without rest. Maybe tonight is the held part. Maybe tonight you are the one being held. Tomorrow will be the released part. The story trusts that, and maybe, quietly, you can trust that too. Today, on the small island of Awaji in the Seto Inland Sea, you can visit a real shrine, Izanagi Izanami. The cedar pillars are old. The white shimenawa is renewed each year. People still leave white plum branches. At certain places in central Honshu, in the deep mountains, there are stone gates. Black weathered, set into the mountainside. Locals do not name them. They only nod when asked. They walk past quickly. The story is held in the not naming. Every spring, when cherry trees bloom on the slopes of Awaji, people walk under them and quietly thank a goddess they never met. Many do not know they are doing this. The thanks goes through anyway. The blossoms catch the gratitude. At weddings everywhere in Japan, the groom still speaks his vow first. The bride answers. The order has held for thousands of years now, quietly, gently, without anyone needing to remember the small green hill or the vermilion pillar. At every Torii gate, at every Shinto shrine, the small bow before passing through is the same bow Izanagi gave when stepping out of the dark valley above the Yomi gate. The body remembers what the mind has forgotten. At the entrance to every Shinto shrine, the small stone basin still waits. The bamboo ladle still rests on its rim. Visitors still rinse hands and mouth before approaching the inner gate. The first such basin was a clear, shallow stream in southern Kyushu. At the entrance to every Japanese home where someone has died, salt is set on the threshold stone. A small hira pass, a small gray boulder, a small reminder. The household keeps its quiet boundary the way Izanagi kept his. Each year, in the deep festivals of midsummer, drums sound on small islands. Lanterns float on dark water. People walk in slow circles around central wooden posts. Right side, left side. The first marriage is danced quietly into the night. And every day at dawn, the sun rises over the eastern coast of Honshu. Amaterasu, daughter of a stream and a grief. Light on the cherry trees. Light on the rice fields. Light on every doorway where salt sits at the threshold. The story has not gone anywhere. It is still the foundation. 8 green islands, 2 patient promises, a vermilion pillar, a gray boulder, a clear stream of orange trees, a small amber lantern. All of them still here, all of them still kept. The story is held now. The 8 islands rest in their soft arc. The lantern at the small green hill is still warm. Nothing more needs to happen tonight. The cherry trees of Awaji are quiet. The pine forests of Shikoku are quiet. The rice fields of Honshu are quiet. The snow on the high mountains is quiet. Even the storm sea is asleep tonight. Next time, somewhere colder, older, a different kind of fire. Something is waiting. You can almost hear it. But not tonight. We'll be here, when you're ready. Let your shoulders drop. Let your hands rest. The 8 islands are holding themselves tonight. They do not need you. The lantern at the small green hill is still lit. Nothing more is needed from you tonight. You are allowed to sleep. The cherry trees of Awaji will be there tomorrow. The rice fields will ripen. The boulder at Hira Pass will keep its quiet seal. Sleep softly tonight. The 2 old gods are quiet. The 8 islands are quiet. The whole story is quiet. Good night. From the small green hill. From the 8 islands. From all of us.